Okay, so picture this. It's the morning of November 26th, 1839. The sun comes up over the Bay of Bengal, and where a city used to be, there's just water and ships miles inland. Some of them flipped completely upside down, like someone threw them. We're talking about 300,000 people gone in one night. That's the entire population of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, just wiped out. And the city they lived in? It was never rebuilt. It doesn't even exist as a city anymore. There's a tiny little village there now. That is it. But here's the real kicker. And this is the thing that, almost nobody knows about. A scientist came to study the wreckage of this disaster, and what he saw was so completely unprecedented that he literally had to invent a new word to describe what happened. And that word? You use it on the Weather Channel. You used it in your last hurricane text to a friend. The word is cyclone. Alright, let's back way up, because to really feel how devastating 1839 was, you gotta understand what Coringa actually was. And honestly, this city was a seriously big deal. We're talking one of the most important port cities on the entire southeastern coast of India. The Godavari River Delta, which is basically this giant natural highway for trade, emptied right into the sea there. Cotton, timber, rice, spices, indigo, all of it flowing through Coringa. The Dutch were there, the French were there, the British East India Company was there. Everybody wanted a piece of this place. For over 300 years, Coringa had its own proper harbor, and at its peak, something like 20,000 vessels operated in and around it. Shipbuilding was huge there. The tidal banks of the Coringa River were literally lined with shipyards. And these weren't just trading posts staffed by colonial officers. This was a community, families, markets, a lighthouse built in 1805. There was even a company house, a formal British East India Company residence for the harbor master, right on the river. The place was legit. And here's the thing. This wasn't even Coringa's first rodeo with total destruction. Back in 1789, exactly 50 years before, another massive cyclone had already slammed into the city, killed around 20,000 people, wrecked the place. You'd honestly think that would just be the end, right? But no. Coringa came back. They rebuilt, kept trading, kept living. And by the 1830s, it was absolutely thriving again. Which, honestly, just makes what happened next so much more heartbreaking. And look, I want to make all of this real for a second, because behind the numbers, there were actual people. In April of 1839, just 7 months before the disaster, a young British officer named James Flower married a woman named Charlotte Mary Innes in Madras. They honeymooned on a sloop to Coringa, where James had just been appointed as the harbor's master attendant. Basically, the guy who ran the whole port. They settled into the company house right on the Coringa River. Everything was perfect. Life was good. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. Okay, real quick. I want to hear from you on this one. If you found out the city where you lived had already been hit by a major disaster before, but you genuinely loved living there, what do? Stay, because home is home. Or get out while you can. Drop it in the comments right now. Stay or go. I'm genuinely curious what people say. Okay, back to 1839. So, why does this keep happening in this exact part of the world? Why is the Bay of Bengal basically just a cyclone factory? Okay, so here's the science, and I promise I will make this interesting. The Bay of Bengal is basically a warm, semi-enclosed, shallow body of water. And warm water is cyclone fuel, like literal rocket fuel. The warmer the surface of the ocean, the more energy a developing storm can pull in. The bay regularly hits water temperatures of 28 degrees Celsius or higher, which is prime, textbook, cyclone-forming territory. And the real killer in Coringa wasn't the wind, by the way. It wasn't even the rain. It was the storm surge. Here's how it actually works. As a cyclone moves over shallow coastal water, its massive low-pressure core literally sucks the ocean's surface upward, like a giant vacuum cleaner on the sea. And then the spinning winds push that domed wall of water toward the coast. Now, in a shallow-bottomed bay like the Godavari Delta, that water has absolutely nowhere to go except up and inland. The 1839 surge reached 40 feet, 12 meters. That is a 4-story building made of solid seawater moving toward you. And you have maybe minutes of warning. Maybe. Now here's a wild stat that just says it all. The Bay of Bengal produces roughly 7 of the 10 deadliest tropical cyclones ever recorded. 7 out of 10. That is not bad luck. That is geography. The bay is shaped like a funnel. Storms track northwest and just compress as they approach the narrow northern end. The flat, low-lying river deltas like the Godavari offer absolutely zero protection. And in 1839, no satellites, no warning system, no evacuation routes, nothing. Just, the wind picked up a little, that's weird. And then a 40-foot wall of water. Okay, pattern interrupt. Right now, let me tell you about possibly the most important person in this entire story, and the one that basically nobody ever mentions. His name was Henry Piddington, former sea captain. Later settled in Calcutta working for the East India Company. And this guy was, he was obsessed. Like, genuinely, beautifully obsessed with tropical storms. He spent years collecting reports from sailors and captains who'd survived these events across the Indian Ocean. And he noticed something that nobody had ever formally put together before. The winds in these storms didn't just blow randomly, they moved in circles. In 1848, after studying both Coringa cyclones and dozens of other storms, Piddington published a book called The Sailor's Hornbook for the Law of Storms. And in it, he coined a brand new word. He took the ancient Greek kyklon, which he described as signifying the coil of the snake, and turned it into cyclone, one word, born directly out of 300,000 deaths in Coringa. And we still use it, globally, every single day. Think about that. Every weather report, every evacuation order, every text you've ever sent saying, "There's a cyclone coming," that comes from Coringa, 1839. That's, honestly, kind of wild. Okay, back to that night. November 25th, 1839. And here's a detail that really gets me. The storm hit unusually late in the Bay of Bengal's cyclone season. Most storms arrive earlier in the year, so people weren't necessarily on high alert. And then, witnesses later described something deeply unsettling starting to happen in the harbor. The water retreated. The sea level in the harbor just started dropping. Ships began to list in the suddenly shallow water. And then, the first wave came. Witnesses described not one, but 3 successive massive waves, each one bigger than the last. The first one drove every single ship in the anchorage, every one, crashing onto the shore. And then the second wave, and the third, each one bigger. 40 feet of water, and seriously, just stop and picture that. A 4-story building of ocean crashing over an entire city. Houses were just gone. Trees ripped out by their roots. Cattle and livestock drowned miles inland. The harbor's 20,000 vessels destroyed. Later accounts describe ships of 100 to 200 tons found miles inland. Some flipped completely upside down. Piddington quotes an eyewitness who visited a month later, and he says the wreckage looked like, quote, gigantic demons had been throwing the huge hulls at one another. Come on, that quote does not miss. Now, there's one survivor whose account just chills me to the bone every single time. William Pascal, the lighthouse keeper on Hope Island, just off the coast. He literally watched the whole thing from his lighthouse tower. He wrote that at 10 p.m., the wind suddenly hauled around to the southeast and blew what he called, and I'm quoting directly, a dreadful hurricane. The water rose 2 feet inside the lighthouse. The door burst open. Everything inside was swept away. And then, and this is the detail that gets me, the top of the lighthouse lantern literally wrenched and whirled itself aloft. His entire house was washed away. He survived by just clinging to the stone tower. By midday on November 26th, it was calm, completely, eerily, disturbingly calm. Pascal climbed down from his tower and walked the shoreline. He found 5 corpses. Just 5 on that stretch of beach, because the surge had swept virtually everyone and everything miles inland. And Coringa? The harbor? The market? The docks? The company house? Just gone. Mud, wreckage, and the sound of nothing. A city that had existed for hundreds of years, erased overnight. And here's the thing about Coringa that makes it genuinely different from almost every other disaster story. It never came back. The 1789 cyclone, they rebuilt. 50 years of recovery, and the city was thriving again. But 1839? No. The survivors, what few remained, mostly moved inland. The British relocated port operations north to a city called Coconada. The fertile Godavari delta lands that had supported the city for centuries were now saturated with saltwater. Crops wouldn't grow. The entire economic engine, the harbor, the shipyards, the trade networks, was just gone. Within a decade, Coringa had gone from one of the most important ports in all of British India to nothing. And James Flower, the harbor master who just moved there with his bride Charlotte only months before, he survived. He eventually moved the port operations to Coconada and kept working. But Charlotte? She died in June 1840, just 7 months after the cyclone. Probably cholera, the disease that almost always followed these disasters as clean water vanished and the water supply was contaminated. She was in her 20s. She is believed to be buried in a small cemetery at Coringa. Today, there are 1 or 2 headstones remaining. That's, honestly, all that's left to say that a young woman moved there, started her life, and was gone in under a year. So, what's actually there now? And this is honestly one of my favorite parts of this story, because it's a beautiful twist. The former site of Coringa is now home to the Coringa Wildlife Sanctuary, established in 1978. It's the 3rd largest stretch of mangrove forests in all of India. 24 species of mangrove trees, 120 species of birds. Nature absolutely reclaimed it. The same Godavari Delta that once powered a thriving commercial city is now one of the country's most important ecological reserves. The disaster, in this completely unintended way, preserved the land from future development. Nature got it back. And here is where this whole story comes full circle. Henry Piddington's work studying the Coringa cyclones, and the word he invented, fundamentally changed how human beings understand and track these storms. His recognition that tropical storms have organized circular wind patterns laid the groundwork for modern meteorology, for storm classification, for the forecasting systems that, today, give coastal communities days of warning instead of minutes. The Bay of Bengal still produces devastating cyclones, but today, satellites track them in real time. Evacuation routes exist. We went from 0 warning to days of warning, all because scientists like Piddington looked at the worst disaster of their era and decided to understand it instead of just mourn it. Here's the thing I want you to sit with, though. The Bay of Bengal is still doing this. The 1970 Bola cyclone, the single deadliest storm in recorded human history, killed 500,000 people. Cyclone Nargis in 2008 killed 138,000 in Myanmar. And climate scientists are now saying that as ocean surface temperatures rise, the bay is becoming more active, not less. The same geography that doomed Coringa in 1839 is still fully in play. But now, at least, we have a word for it. And we have one obsessive, brilliant, stubbornly curious sea captain to thank for that. A man who looked at total devastation and decided to understand it. That's genuinely something. 300,000 people, one night, one wave, and a word the entire world uses today. The Coringa Cyclone of 1839 is one of the most devastating and honestly most forgotten disasters in all of human history, and it deserves to be remembered. If this story hit you the way it hits me, smash that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people. Drop a comment. Tell me what part of this story got you most. Was it Charlotte? Was it Pascal in the lighthouse? Was it Piddington naming the word? I want to know. Subscribe if you want more history that sounds too wild to be real, but absolutely, totally is. And hey, share this one. Coringa deserves to be remembered. I'll see you in the next one.